All right, it looks like everything is going. The timer is timing. Everything is happening. Magic, magic, magic. Good morning, everybody. I've said good morning 6 times for everybody else that I've been testing other platforms, but good morning to you folks who are watching in widescreen versus vertical video. My name is Sean Shapiro. You've tuned into Ask a Traffic Cop. It's that question and answer period where we talk about traffic safety, traffic law, and police stuff. We do it Monday to Friday from 10 to 11, usually. Sometimes we have to shift. We got to jump around a bit, but you know what? We're here on a regular basis, most days, and we like to keep it that way. It's a lot of fun. We like to answer your traffic and police questions because it's something we know about. We are a traffic unit. That's why we call ourselves Traffic Services. It's actually the name of the unit, but whatever. Lots of interesting things. We had the Santa Claus parade over the weekend. We had a whole bunch of people arrested for impaired operation over the weekend. So, you know, Red Ribbon campaign or Project Red Ribbon, it is going on now. We're talking about impaired driving. We see an increase of impaired driving offenses over the times as we start celebrating towards the holidays. And people say, well, why do you always talk about it more over the holidays? Because why? Because people do bad things and make poor choices, and there's more people celebrating and socializing, and it tends to be increased numbers. But that's why we're always looking for impaired operation, but it's a problem. What do we got here? Jacob says, morning, Sean. Good morning. And the Canadian show is watching on YouTube and on TikTok. Good morning to you. Yeah, we're on the YouTube too. We're everywhere. Currently broadcasting on Instagram Live, TikTok, of course, live. We're on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter even. Except the caveat with Twitter is that you can see me, but I can't see you. Well, I can't see any of you, but I can't hear from you. If you're leaving me messages, if you're trying to interact on Twitter, it just don't work. And we're upset about that, but we've moved on. If you want to ask us questions, jump into any one of the other platforms that we're broadcasting on because all of those work. It's just Twitter that's broken. Some people think it's more broken than anyway. It's a whole other conversation. Twitter is going through some stuff right now, but it's been going through stuff when it comes to our functionality for quite a while. And it's extremely annoying because I want to hear from everybody. I don't want to tell people to move around to different platforms, but anyway, I'm not going to harp on it. We're going to move on. If you have access to our Q&A, which is what the question mark in the bubble on Instagram is, or Q&A, I don't know what it's called, Q&A on the TikTok. That's the best way to get questions and answers. We'll put your question on the screen. If you have, if you have access to somewhere else, well, then use whatever you got. But just know that we miss you, Twitter users. Canadian Show says, I'm literally looking at 2 different angles. Yes. And what I'm really looking forward to is we've been getting some new equipment, and we're looking into getting into a multi-angle system where we can multicam, have guests and stuff. We can do it with remote people right now. It doesn't work on everything. Anyway, the future, it looks bright. I'm on a bike, need to turn, use, what? Josiah saw me on the news and has questions about, that's not the right button, oh no. And has questions about if I'm on a bike, I need to turn to go left, use turn lane, question mark. Yeah, you need to turn, if there is no turning bike lane, you need to use the turning lane. Bike lanes are a great place for you to be. You're not required to be within them all the time. It's a safe place, or it's supposed to be a safe place for you. But if you're making a left turn, you got to go where the left turn lane is. The alternative would be to walk across the street at a crosswalk, and that doesn't seem to be so much fun. Don't ride in a crosswalk. That's against the law. Okay. Hannah says, is it illegal to leave the scene after a crash? Why, yes. If you are an involved party to that crash, you need to do a couple of things before you can leave. You need to make sure everybody's okay. Failing to do that could wind you up with some charges. You need to exchange information, because if you don't do that, you can be charged under the Highway Traffic Act. You're responsible. You're obligated to exchange information with the other parties involved, all other parties, even witnesses. And many people don't realize that. And obviously, a lot of people leave the scene because they're drunk and don't want to get caught. Well, that's a problem. That's a whole different problem. But if you fail to do that, and then furthermore, you're required to report collisions to the police forthwith. So if it's under a certain amount of money, if it is under $2,000 of damage total, and there's no injuries, no damage to property, it may be something that's considered unreportable, which would be you work it out amongst yourself. You're still responsible to the other parties, but it won't be a reportable accident or collision, I should say, to police. If it's $2,000 and above amongst all vehicles involved, or property for that matter, then it is going to be a reportable collision. If you hit a tree, it's a reportable collision. If you injure somebody, it's a reportable collision. So those things will require police or the attendance to a police reporting center, a collision reporting center. Can I give G1 test at 15 years old? No, you may not. You must be 16 years old to operate a motor vehicle, to be a driver in Ontario. So you got to wait. You can take your in-class study. That's what I did when I was a kid. I went to Young Drivers and I rode my bicycle to take the course. I did that. And on the day that I turned 16, bingo bango, I was at the front of the line getting my learner's permit. Then it was called a 365, which I think lasted for all of 30 days before I became a fully licensed G driver. And yeah, that's what happens. If I see a wreck, do I have to stay? The right thing to do would be to stay. If you're a witness, an independent witness is gold for the people involved, because if you leave, then you are not providing them with the vital information they need to paint the picture of what happened. What if they were knocked unconscious? Somebody else could be telling a story that they were the person at fault when in fact it could be another party. So at very least, exchange information, provide information to the people there. If you have to go, we understand that sometimes you have to go. Now, I grew up thinking you were legally obligated to stay, and that's not the case, but it is morally obligated, and at very least, give them your information. It's the right thing to do. Jacob went to Young Drivers. Cool. Jacob wants to know if I would recommend buying a dash camera. And I say this all the time. I 110% suggest everyone have a dash camera. Why? For the very same reason, this question of should I stay at a collision scene? Am I legally required to? Well, here's the thing. Statements are great. And if you don't have any, that's a problem. But if you have a dash camera, that's the best evidence about what actually happened. So I would have dash cameras hanging from every mirror and everything, as long as it's not obstructing your view, because that's a problem. But yeah, I would totally dash cameras for everyone. We have them in all our police vehicles. They record based on a G sensor. So if we're in a collision, boom, it's on, it's recording. We want to have as much evidence as we can. For anyone who wants to ask questions and send video, voice, and text, you can do that in our Volley. In fact, if you go to our link tree, you can find all of our different social media platforms where we are broadcasting now and always. But yeah, cool stuff. What else we got here? We have. Is a construction speed sign valid if blocked out? Well, I don't know what blocked out means, but a construction speed sign, if it is orange, is not a regulated speed sign. I can't write you a ticket based on you driving quickly or above that speed. It's a suggested speed. It is something we'd like you to do for safety, but if you were to be above that, that's not the speed limit. The speed limit is the white, black and white regulated sign. If we're going to have an enforceable speed limit, we're going to actually put up a proper white and black sign. Josiah wants to know, what is the best cop show on TV in your opinion? You know what? Other than Chips, a close second to Chips, which was my favorite 70s and 80s show, well, it's going to be Blue Bloods. And Tom Selleck is the best commissioner, chief, person, dad, awesomeness. Just, yeah, best show ever. Been watching it for 12 or 13 seasons now. It's awesome. I used to like, what was that other one called? What was it called? It was police, fire, and ambulance in one house. They were on one shift. It was called, I can't think of what it's called, but it was amazing. Then it didn't release properly onto DVD because of music right issues. So, yeah. Jacob wants to know about gun cameras. Are they only a thing in the USA? It's the concept where a police officer draws his firearm, the camera under the barrel starts recording. I've seen one video incorporating that. Obviously, we don't have them here, but I've seen one video, and I didn't think it was so magical. But hey, listen, the more cameras, the better. Do you remember the show Cats and Dog? I don't think I did watch that once or twice. I wasn't a big fan. I did see it. There's a number of dog shows, dog police shows that I watched. And then Turner and Hooch came in and turned into from a movie, turned into an actual an actual series, which I watched. The show is called Chicago Fire. No, that's not the one. I know Chicago Fire. It was something else. It was something 3. Oh, I'm going to have to Google it. I have to googly Google it. Hang on a second here. It's really bugging me. Police, fire, and ambulance show, NYPD. What was it called? It was Third Watch. That's what it is. Third Watch. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. I was a court officer at the time, and everyone was bananas about it. This is early 2000s. This was, we'd sit around the cells before prisoners were dropped off, and that's all we talked about is the show we watched the night before. Okay. Joe says he loved it too. Awesome. Yeah, it was amazing. Oh, and Joe, actually, sorry, Joe, I didn't even notice that you put Third Watch. I was busy Googling it when you threw that up there. And Jacob's out. He's got to go to class. Take it easy, Joe. Take it easy, Jacob. All right. Before we get too far into other things, I want to talk to you about Vision Zero Enforcement Team. That is the group of officers that are going out every day trying to make roads safer for everybody in Toronto. They are part of the Vision Zero plan, that enforcement plan. There's the planning side and the design side, and we're the enforcement side. And this team specifically goes out and hands out tickets, no hugs, just tickets, and they are doing it to look for those who choose to speed, those who drive aggressively, drive distracted, or drive impaired. It's the big 4. Those are the driver behaviors that we know lead to serious injury and death. And where are they today? Well, they're in 52 Division and 53 Division. That's the neighborhoods of Kensington, which is Kensington Market, Chinatown, the Bay Street Corridor, Lawrence Park, Yonge and Eglinton, Rosedale, Leaside. Those are neighborhoods with real people working and living and carrying on about their business. They deserve to be safe, and people who choose to drive or conduct themselves with the big 4 are putting lives at risk, and that's not okay. So we're going to make a change, one ticket at a time. Legality if I buy a car with dark tint from the dealer. Well, if you drive it, you are taking responsibility for it. If it has dark tint and it is against the law, it shouldn't be safetied. And if they gave it to you like that, safetied, well, then I'd be having some issues with the fact that they sold you a car that doesn't meet safety. Because if it's more than 30% light blockage, there should be no safety on it. If they did that knowingly, they're conducting themselves in an unprofessional manner. They could even, if their mechanic could even lose their ticket, their mechanic or their license to be able to certify vehicles. Now, that's one side of it. But if you take it on the road and you drive it with tint that's illegal, you are taking responsibility at that point, and you are choosing to drive unsafely or drive with a vehicle that may be unsafe, and at very least is obscuring the interior of the motor vehicle, which is against the law. $110 ticket for that, or the risk of losing your plates for unsafe vehicle. Now, other things would happen. We'd investigate the mechanic, who would probably deny that they noticed that their tint was too dark, but that's another story altogether. What is this? Does Vision Zero include Yonge and Dundas being hit lots? You've been hit lots? We're out all over the place. They go to different intersections every day, and their determination as to where they're going to go is dictated based on high rate of collision locations. So statistics or the analysts will go through and determine on which day trends are showing that they're forecasting based on previous info, and they'll suggest they go there on a date and time, and that's where they go. So if they go to Yonge and Dundas, they might, or they may, but I don't know. Obviously, if they're in 52 Division, they likely will. Is going 5 to 10 kilometers an hour above the speed limit illegal? The speed limit is the speed limit. If you go above it, it's illegal. If you go over by 1, it's illegal. So 5 to 10 is 5 to 10 kilometers of illegality. It's illegal, absolutely. The limit is the limit, and you cannot exceed it. If you do, you get a ticket. Now, the ticket or the offense is speeding. We type in the number of kilometers. That determines how much money you pay, because each kilometer determines an increase in the fine. The charge is static. The fine changes. Once you hit a threshold of speed, though, it could become other things. For instance, stunt driving. So if it's an orange 60, I can ignore it. Well, the orange 60 is there for your safety and the people working. I can't enforce it because it's not a regulated sign. But can you ignore it? Well, not if you care about safety and people and lives. That would just be silly. But I can't enforce it. So you should conduct yourselves accordingly. You should drive properly, because that's part about being a good person and a good driver. Just saying. No, you can't ignore. You should not ignore it. Let's see here. What do we have here? How can I apply? Oh, how can I apply in Canadian police? Please advise. Well, you can go to our website, www.tps.ca/careers. Has all the information you need to know about becoming a member of the Toronto Police Service. In fact, on the 26th of November, there is an Ontario Police Services recruitment fair. It's being held at the Toronto Police College. I believe that registration is complete for that you won't be able to attend if you haven't already registered, but you certainly can still contact the Toronto Police Recruiting Department or unit or the people who want to hire you. But you must be a citizen or a permanent resident in order to apply to be a police officer in Ontario. I don't know what the rules are for different areas of the country, but that is the rule here. JT wants to know, do Canadian officers wear body cams? Each police service is going to have different rules. The Toronto Police Service does wear body cam. It's an expensive transition to get into body cams, and we've finally done it. I think many other services had it before us, and I don't know if there are services that don't have them, but I know that we do them. We do. Can Toronto police pull you over on the highway? Yes, they can. And the Ontario Provincial Police can pull you over in the city. In fact, the Toronto Police and every municipal police service, along with the provincial police, are all sworn officers in the province of Ontario. So technically speaking, we can be police officers anywhere in the province. Brody wants to know, you clock in right now. Do you mean, am I on the clock right now? Yeah, I'm a media relations and social media officer. I'm currently being paid for what I'm doing because that's what I do. At least part of what I do. Is TPS doing ride-alongs? You'd have to organize one, but it is possible to get a ride-along. They were halted during COVID, but I believe they are back on for students and media. But you can't just walk off the street and say, "Hey, I'd really like to wander around the streets with somebody." Can police radar oncoming traffic while they drive? Yes, they can. It's something called moving radar, and it's in vehicles that are equipped with it. So not all vehicles have them, but all traffic cars have them. How bad is it to get caught with a stealth plate on the 407? What is a stealth plate? Do you mean a plate with a cover, a plate that has a cover on it? There's a charge specifically for it. And depending on what you've done, it could be even into the realm of arrestability. Arrestability, is that a word? I'm going to make it a word. If it ain't a word now, it's going to be a word now. Is it illegal to drive without shoes on? Shay wants to know. The answer is no, it's not. A lot of people believed it. I believed it growing up. It's not a good idea, and as I've said many a time, if you smash that brake pedal in an emergency, you're going to hurt your toesies. And the idea of having a solid surface that has grip or traction is ideal. Listen, high heels or big bulky boots or any kind of footwear that makes it more difficult for you to work those pedals, that's a problem too. So many people have driving shoes, then switch out before getting out and walking around or cleaning snow or whatever. What happens if you don't have your license on you? The answer is you can get a ticket for it. You need to surrender your driver's license upon demand of a police officer for reasonable inspection. Was it reasonable inspection? I can't remember the wording. I think it's reasonable inspection. In any case, you got to have the plastic card on you. You have to surrender it. If you don't, $110 ticket for failing to surrender. If you don't have a license, it's a different charge. Can I drive with my dog on my lap? The answer is no. No, you may not. That's careless driving at the least. Drive while crowded is a good one. In the event of a collision, you're going to kill that dog because the airbag that deploys at 200 miles an hour is going to destroy the dog. It's a bad day at the office for them. It could be very well a bad day at the office for you. Are you joining us?
You know what? We could sit down for a few minutes.
Sergeant Campbell is going to come by and say, hey, I'll give you that. You got some. Mike is hot, and we're just talking about dogs.
Good morning.
On laps. Good morning. Good morning.
No mic, I don't think.
Yeah, Mike. Oh, no. You have no. I got to turn on.
That's
yes, it's the headphone sounds. Yes. So some backstory. I had to reconfigure all the wires this morning to jump back onto my Zoom P8 because the Rodecaster Pro 2 is not making me happy when it comes to broadcasting on TikTok. So we had to make a temporary change until we can get a cable.
You know what? Typical police officers don't like change.
No, change bad.
Yeah. I heard you talking about dogs on laps.
Yes.
Oh, very bad.
It is, and it's not fair for the dog. You know, people claim that they love their best friend and furry friends. Some people even say they're fur parents. But at the end of the day, if you want to protect your best pal, buddy, whatever, don't put them on your lap. Either tether them in the back seat or crate them in the back seat. That's the best thing. And if you say that you feel bad for them, and they whine or they're unhappy, train them better, but don't put them in a situation where you're going to hurt them or you.
And on top of that, you know what? When your dog's on your lap, dogs are unpredictable. Even if you have the best dog in the world, they are unpredictable, especially with changing situations. What happens if you have to make a very quick evasive maneuver to avoid something? Somebody else did something wrong. With your dog in your lap, you may not be able to do that. So, bad idea.
Some dogs are so small they can get wedged under pedals. I mean, really bad things can happen. And if you're in a collision, let's say everything's fine. Nothing happens, no airbags deployed, they're fine, but you can't get out of the car, window gets broken, they run off and get smoked on the highway. You're just going to feel terrible. So protect your emotions, even if it's not just protecting your car and your dog and yourself. It's emotions. Purchased a used car, no insurer. Can I drive it home? No. You need insurance to drive a motor vehicle on the road. You can't just drive it home. You need to make arrangements. You can tow it home with a tow truck or device that would allow for legal towing, but you cannot drive it.
You can go get a 10-day temporary trip permit on the vehicle to allow you to drive it home.
But you still need to call your insurance company to say, I need coverage.
Yes, you have to have coverage on the vehicle.
And there's also the fact that if you have plates that are active, that are valid, and licensed for the road, but not currently assigned to another vehicle, you could temporarily, within, I think you have 6 days of window, while it's insured, to drive back and forth to get it to the mechanic. What is this? I pressed the wrong button. It gave me a silly question. What do we got here? What happens if I'm caught street racing? Master Enzo 44 wants to know. Did you write that down, Sergeant?
Master Enzo? Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye out.
We'll keep an eye out for you. Street racing is against the law. It's stunt driving. You have a 14-day impound of your vehicle, 30-day suspension of your license, and that's roadside. Then once you're convicted, it's a 1 to 3 year suspension, a $2,000 to $10,000 fine. It's up to 6 months in jail. So that's your first conviction. So street racing, bad.
You know what, Sean? We have some of the lowest regulated prices for towing and storage of vehicles, probably in the province. We are pretty good. It'll still cost you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get your vehicle back after 14 days. And that's not including the $150 even just to apply to get your license back.
The reinstatement fee. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you're looking at a couple of grand easily. And that's that's before you ever get to court. And
so the answer to that would be, don't do it.
Don't do it. And the goal of all these laws is to simply get people to dissuade them, to try and promote good behavior. And those who choose to engage in bad behavior, well, they effectively write the check themselves, and we just document it so they can pay the government for their poor choices. What authority does a cop have outside of their jurisdiction? Well, if you're talking about the province of Ontario, we have the same authority everywhere within the province. We're police officers 24/7. So, it's regardless of where we are, we can act if we need to. We generally don't go looking for speeders outside of our area for Highway Traffic Act. If we happen to be there and something's egregious, we can act on it. But generally speaking, we're not doing enforcement outside of our jurisdiction.
And most police officers or police services in Ontario are here to do general policing. We have other police services that actively investigate stuff here in the province. I'm thinking of railway police. I'm thinking of transit police. I'm thinking of the RCMP. They have different jurisdictions that they're able to actively go in. Some of the railway police actually have jurisdiction in the U.S., in certain U.S. states.
Yes, in relation to their property.
Yep.
Yeah. We got a question that came in from Chase about requirements for licenses. Now, on the Roadcaster Pro, I was able to port the audio in. I'm not connected to that one, so I've got to do this old school.
So I have a condition on my license that I have to wear prescription glasses. So am I allowed to switch to my sunglasses, like take them off and put them on while I'm driving, or is that like a violation technically?
Well, technically, the moment you're not wearing your glasses, you're breaking a condition of your license. And if you were to become involved in a collision during that moment, you've led that condition, breaking of the condition led to your collision. You're technically breaking the law. But you should, I would say, pull over and do it safely.
You know what? There's a big difference between the letter of the law and
The spirit.
the spirit of the law.
Yes.
You know what? If you can do it quickly and efficiently, like in the time that it would take you to blink an eye, I think you'd be pretty safe.
Yeah, the idea is to make sure that when you're driving, because when we stop someone, we'll very often see, and then we'll look at them not wearing glasses. We'll ask them why not. We'll ask them if they're wearing contacts. You know, at the end of the day, you do have to follow those conditions.
And when you do have some corrective surgery, say, you have to update the Ministry of Transport with documentation showing that you've had that. I know somebody who legitimately had the surgery, corrected their eyes. They had 20/20 vision, didn't change it on their license, and ended up with a fine, and the conviction stuck
No kidding.
because it's their responsibility.
I don't have to wear glasses anymore. I had laser surgery. I went in, did another eye test, and they took off the condition. So that was my story. Lord Evan Gamer says, if you take police foundations, have lots of volunteer hours and work experience, would that make you a competitive applicant? Well, it is a holistic approach. They look at everything, but absolutely, if you don't have education and you don't have volunteers, you are not a competitive applicant. So I would think you're on the right path. And now I want to know what game you play. That's very inquiring minds. What if my license is expired and I get stopped? Then you have no license, and you can get charged for having no license and driving with no license. If you get into a collision with no license, that's a problem.
Yeah, your insurance would never cover you if you were not licensed. And we will take your car away, too.
It's a bad day at the office. What happens if I drive with my learners? Well, as long as you're being supervised by a qualified G driver, that is someone with a full G license and 4 years of driver's experience, that starts from the time that they get their G2, and it has to be without any interruptions, because interruptions don't count. So if they had their G2 for 2 years and then had a 1 year suspension, let's say, and then 1 year as a G, that's not 4 years, that's only 3. So the real thing is make sure that your qualified drivers have the 4 dots vertically arranged to the left of the mini-me picture in the bottom right-hand corner of the license, and nobody followed that, because I always say that very quickly, and people go, what?
Yeah? Well,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
What do you-
Yeah, it's up to the Ministry of Transport to determine if you are a qualified person to drive. You must have that. Even if you think you're qualified, that must be on your license before you do it.
Yeah, and then the other thing is the qualified G is the only person that can be in the front seat with you. And because I assume that Zacky Boy wants to know if what'll happen if they drive with their G1 unaccompanied. Well, there's a charge under the HTA that's called G1 drive unaccompanied. It's $110. It comes with a 30-day suspension on your license for your first conviction. It's a 90-day suspension the second time. And on your third conviction, you get kicked out of the graduated licensing program. And that's not good. Additionally, you have no insurance in the event of a collision. If you were thinking about this as a way of, driving, it's not even remotely legal. So I was going to say, people during the when we had lockdown, were saying, I can't get my license, so I'm just going to do it. Well, it's a bad idea. Additionally, if someone loans you their vehicle when you only have your G1, they are violating the Highway Traffic Act. They can be charged.
Yep.
If you take it without permission, then you're getting into criminality.
And once again, we tow your car away.
Yes, it's all bad. Can you eat while driving? This is the question. Hungry minds want to know.
Can you eat? Well, you can't be distracted. You can't let your eating impair your ability to operate a motor vehicle.
And that's really the thing. Like if you put take a bite of your egg McMuffin, that's that.
Okay.
Is that a generic term, or have I just specifically?
You just called it McDonald's.
I called it McDonald's. So if you have your egg McMuffin or your sausage and egg not Mick sandwich from another party, if that leads to you negatively or driving poorly, well, that's not distracted driving. That's careless driving.
Yeah, absolutely. A bowl of oatmeal.
Oh, I've seen some very interesting choices. I've seen full on like styrofoam with the lid up, one hand holding it, the other one scooping, driving with the knee. That's absolutely careless driving.
What about super hot soup?
Oof.
Yeah.
That could
cause a problem.
One foul move. Well, if it was,
One
chicken soup.
One speed bump.
Just-
One pothole.
I was thinking foul. Isn't
Foul,
is chicken
chicken?
foul? No, chicken's not foul, is it?
Chicken's a foul.
Is it a foul? It falls under there. I was going for the foul joke.
The dad joke? Oh, that's terrible.
All right. What if I spin my tires in snow accidentally? Is it stunt driving at that point? I think there's obviously observations of the officer make a big difference. If you're talking about you lost traction momentarily, is very different than if you lost traction intentionally.
Right.
And it's pretty obvious to the observer which is which.
Right. So, stunt driving is when you're doing it intentionally for the purpose of doing it. And a lot of people say that, well, I learned how to drive better by, controlling a drift. Well, you should never get there, ever.
Yeah.
Really. And you know what? If you have to expect stuff to come up on the road, black ice happens, slippery conditions happen, slush happens, big puddles happen. You need to operate the speed and properly during that time. So really, you shouldn't ever get into a drift.
Yeah, there's no excuse. And people say, well, this is all good stuff for learning how to drive. No, avoiding loss of traction is the goal, not the recover while not losing any time on your lap speed. It's a very big difference. If you were to lose traction or control, you reduce the amount of gas you're giving it, you recover, and you continue driving slowly. You don't just hammer down and ride that curve. And that's what people are doing when they're stunt driving. They're carrying on the loss of traction and just playing with it. And that's where we run into problems. That's stunt driving. Lose your car for 14 days, lose your license for 30.
You know what, John? There are places to do that if that's what you enjoy doing. Choose them appropriately. Not the road, not a parking lot, not a beach, not private property, not in a field.
It's basically nowhere except a track or permanent events.
Yeah, pretty much.
Including like Indy. We have Creza 2020 says, I got 4 dots from day 1 of G. Can G1 drive beside me? If the 4 dots, the vertically assigned 4 dots are there, then I would say yes. I can't give you the 100% without knowing your license in front of me and endorsing you as I identify those are the 4 dots that are required. But if you're talking about the dots that I'm talking about, then those are the dots you need.
Yeah, and you know what? If the Ministry of Transport accidentally made a mistake and put them on there,
it's on them.
Then you know what? You would be justified. You'd have an argument if you were taken to court.
100%. Are you able to type a USA plate in to see if it's valid? Oh, yes. Yes, we can. We can check provincial plates. We can check American plates. We can check plates of all sizes and shapes. We like plates.
Yep. I think the farthest away one that I was able to do was Mexico.
Really?
Yep.
I've never run a Mexican plate.
Yep.
I've never seen a Mexican plate in Ontario.
Well, there you go.
Ooh, now I've got things to aspire to. The greatness that's, honestly, I've lots of American, a lot of Florida plates, a lot of California plates, a lot of all sorts of, a Montana plate recently I saw. I didn't run it, I just happened to see it. I like plates. Adolf plates, not those plates. Can you argue a ticket if cop was on private property? So you're saying that the officer was standing on private property when they used their laser device to measure your speed and wrote you a ticket and you don't want to pay it. You can argue whatever you like. Will it change the validity of the ticket? No.
And you can get charges on private property. If you're on private property, there are certain charges you're eligible for.
But in this case, they're driving on the road. Police officers hiding behind a bush, wearing full camouflage. They were not seen. But one thing that many people don't realize is private property isn't off limits entirely for us to be on. And additionally, private property doesn't start at the grass. Usually, it's quite a ways up to the fence line, or what would be the fence line. There's an area that is still government or not private property.
There's a difference between the highway and the roadway.
Yes.
And it is measured differently.
Fence line to fence line?
Fence line to fence line, and it's usually on a 2-lane road, 33 feet to the side.
So
usually.
Very often those trees that we're hiding behind, the really skinny ones that completely obscure my ability to be noticed by drivers, yeah, it's amazing.
Sorry, a little skinny tree?
Skinny tree. I'm a big guy in front of a skinny tree. Nobody sees me when I got my radar device or my speed measurement device. In any case, that's still a city tree on city property.
And even if it wasn't, it makes no difference.
It makes no difference. All right, we got the question a couple of times from Hold Up. Got to find another one. Ownership is a one-word question to which I don't understand the context, and we'll just remove that. If you have more words that you can add with that word to make it a question, I'm happy to answer. What schooling do you need post-secondary to be an officer? Well, grade 12 is the only minimum that we have now. There was a real push to get more post-secondary, but it's not a requirement. It is a good to have. You make yourself more competitive when you're standing up against other people with post-secondary. But at the end of the day, grade 12 is all the minimum says. Many people taking law enforcement and security, and other people taking accounting and knitting. Whatever you take that's continuous education is better than none. And ultimately, we're going to send you to the police college to get the training that you need.
You know what? I can say that a varied experience, a varied schooling, actually makes a better police service. If everybody was exactly the same, we'd all be robots and doing the exact same thing. We need people that are good thinkers, doers, figure-outers.
Yeah.
You know what? Come from a different perspective, and you can do a different job. There's so much we can do in this job.
100%. I like to use the example of accounting. If you had your accounting ticket, you were a chartered accountant, you came to policing because you got tired of calculators, we'd find a way to get you to use your calculator again because we have financial crimes investigations. That would make you a perfect candidate for that role because you have experience that nobody else has or very few people have.
Yep, absolutely.
What bikes are allowed to be so loud? Sorry, why are bikes allowed to be so loud but cars aren't or can't? I'm making my own words up here. Kai's blank blank show asked. I won't say the actual name, but it's a good name. The answer is they're not. They're not. And the deal is that any noise that is unnecessary, and you can qualify for that ticket of unnecessary noise, $110. It could be your stereo, your horn, your exhaust. It could be because of defect. It could be because of an aftermarket pipe. It could be because of behavior on a stock pipe. Now, there is a bylaw in the City of Toronto that says 92 decibels at idle will get a motorcycle a $500 ticket. That's a bylaw ticket. That's over or separate from the HTA offense.
What about loud pipes save lives? I've heard that somewhere before.
The loud pipes save life. It is such a fallacy. I will say this: pedestrians hear loud vehicles, but the whole Doppler effect thing. You're leaving your sound behind you. Unless your pipes were facing forward, you're really not projecting it into the future that you're traveling into. They're behind you, so everyone behind you, they are very well aware of the fact that you've just passed them.
Yeah,
but it doesn't work. This loud pipe save lives thing, even though it triggers people and they get all upset because they have stickers on their helmets that say so, it's actually not true.
You know what, Sean? I can tell you our sirens are pointed at the front of our police cars.
And they're still useless.
And there's an awful lot of people that are driving the same direction that don't even hear it. And legitimately don't hear it.
100%. Now, we've done some testing. We're just playing around at 100 kilometers an hour. You generally won't hear the siren until you're just over a foot or one car length off the back of it. Like truly hear it until you're about 1 foot because you have road noise, you have speed, you have the Doppler effect, you have a number of factors. In any case, speed is a science, or sound is a science unto itself. Anyway, Kyle Hawking, good morning, sir. Morning, Sean. Is it true that police officers must be plainly visible when doing speed enforcement? Do they only do it for safety, or can they hide when I think you mean lasering vehicles or monitoring vehicles? Oddly enough, you just missed us talking about that. Well, actually, the question was about being on private property, not being visible. But no, there's no obligation to be visible. When we're out operating on the road, we have to be wearing our appropriate uniform. We don't wear camouflage. But being
we
visible,
could.
We could. There's nothing saying
there's nothing saying we can't.
except unless we're on the roadway, because then we have to be we have to have our safety stuff.
Well, there's a requirement for safety, high vis stuff.
But there's no obligation when doing enforcement to be visible.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
we have stealth cars that hide police officers so you can't see them.
Yes, this is true.
And your skinny tree, although it wouldn't hide much of you.
I turn sideways. It's actually worse. But yeah, there's no requirement. There may be policies that a police service puts in, but it's not a policy of the Toronto Police, nor is it a legal requirement.
Correct.
But Kyle, always good to hear from you. Let's see here. What's this? Can an Irish citizen be a cop in Canada? If they become a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, then yes. But once upon a time, they were doing a lot of things. Like people were moving to Canada just to become police officers many, many years ago. And I don't know what the status of that is, but as the requirements are, according to our website, permanent resident or citizen. Let's see here. A question about pot that I don't have an answer for. They're moving from another province. They want to know how to bring their pot. I'm assuming they don't mean plant. like potted plants, like evergreen. I think they're talking about marijuana. But I don't know about the transport of large quantities because there are maximums as to what you can transport.
Yes, and I don't think you're allowed to have large quantities anyways.
Well,
and that's a Canadian-wide.
oh, so there would be the same laws, so it wouldn't matter provincially.
Right.
Yeah.
So Highway Traffic Act does limit the amount you're allowed to have in a vehicle.
Is it the Cannabis Control Act? I think it's the Cannabis Control Act.
Which is in Ontario.
Oh, so is it going to be a... Yeah, I have to look into it. I'm not a pot person.
You're not a pot person?
I'm not a pot person. I have pots, and I recently got some spider plants because my kids wanted to buy spider plants. I think they call it spider plants. The little green leaves, and they grow
I have
all
no
over.
idea. This is
I think
your
they're
story.
called spider plants. My radar detector sees you behind those skinny trees. Well, it wouldn't see me because I don't use radar. I use laser. And by the time it sees me, I've already seen you. But just so you know, $170 ticket, 2 demerit points. It gives us full search and seizure authority for just having the belief that you have it.
Yes. Which means we take apart your car.
Yes.
We don't have to put it back together.
That hopefully you have a multi-tool.
Well, we don't even need to use that.
No, but hopefully they have a multi-tool.
Well, to put it back together?
That's what I'm saying.
You know what? Radar detectors, I think Sean has an opinion on that they're expressly used to make the roads more dangerous for everybody.
Yeah, I have no idea why any province or country or place would allow them. I don't even think they should be manufactured. The deal is they are put into place. People buy them because they have the intention to break the law and make the roads unsafe. They may not be wanting to make their own roads unsafe, but they're operating on the false belief that they are not part of the problem, when in fact speeding is part of the problem. So I don't think that they should be legal. All people do when they have these is speed until the thing goes meep meep, and then they slow down temporarily to avoid detection and then go back to being unsafe. So I think that our tickets are actually, I think, too low. It should be somewhere around the $1,000 mark to start.
I'd agree.
And then it should multiply by 10 every time they...
And you know what? I like your meep meep.
Meep meep. Wait. I don't know which button it is. There it is. All right. Too many buttons. I keep getting pulled over with dealer plates. Why? What are you doing to get pulled over? Are they just checking the validity of your dealer plates? Are you speeding? Are you running stop signs with your dealer plates? Are you affixing them permanently to the vehicle, and maybe someone doesn't believe that the vehicle is part of the fleet of available for sale vehicles from that dealership? There's so many reasons why you might be being pulled over with dealer plates, but I don't know what's going on in your life.
Is it a dealer plate? Is it a service plate? Both have different limitations on them.
Yes.
Are you an employee or are you not an employee? They can't give it out to, just anybody to drive around willy-nilly as they like. Has to be within the dealer fleet. That means changed into the dealer's inventory.
Yes. There's a lot of misuse of those plates, and obviously some of them get stolen and misused. So it might be that your numbers or letters are similar to the one that is being looked for.
And what about the car? We don't know what car it is because they're allowed to go on different cars. So are we going to look into your car and see if your car is stolen or unsafe or anything?
And mostly part of inventory because so many people are misusing them.
Yeah.
It is a problem. I see cars with accident damage. Is this allowed? Well, obviously, if the vehicle is so damaged that it's unsafe for the road, it shouldn't be on the road. And if we saw something that was falling apart, we'd most likely pull it over to check if it was safe and possibly pull its plates. Minor damage, very minor cosmetic damage may be okay to drive, but beyond that, it's very easy before it becomes unsafe.
Yeah, sharp protruding pieces of metal, things like that. Missing parts, missing headlights, broken taillights, things like that. While there's a requirement to have at least one red light on the back, you do have a requirement to signal your turns left and right, and it has to be red or amber light that's being shined. If your taillight lens is now shining white out the back, there's an issue there. A whole bunch of things.
There are many, many problems. Question: can we see Calgary plates? Yes, we can. What happens if you drive at 14 without a license? That's a question. Well, then you're driving without a license, and that's against the law. Let's see here. Please don't spam. Please don't ask the same question. That person asked that multiple times. If my G2 expired, could I still take a G road test? Well, Hamza, I have some good information for you. If your license, your G2, expired after March 2020, it is still valid until December 31st. So hurry up. Like, really, hurry up. Because it's currently valid right now, but it ceases to be at the end of the year. If you had to take if you just couldn't pass your G test until or before it expired, you do have the option of taking the G1 to G2 test again and renewing for 5 more years your G2. But it requires you to take a test, which is cool because then you can keep driving.
Right now, Sean, I think it's still the end of the year. Drive Test Ontario is actually performing the G2 test.
G2 exit, like
The G2 test for your full G.
really?
Yep, that's still continuing. That's to
Wow.
get rid of the backlog. Have a family member who just went through it, and
But that's the abbreviated G2 test, right? Or the G2 exit. But it's, I think there's even less than that's on the G1 to G2 test.
right. So the G2 to G test includes the highway, includes an extended, a whole bunch of other requirements on it that the G1 to G2 is. They're currently still doing the G1 to G2 test for G2 to G
Really?
till the
Didn't
end
know
of the
that.
year.
Okay, I knew there were some modifications. I didn't realize it was that. Why don't cops try to hide better on highways? I think they're trying to dissuade people from making bad decisions. Like, I think the idea is not to catch everybody, but suggest everybody should slow down. So if you see us, maybe they would actually do that.
You know what, Sean? I sometimes, when I'm writing up reports and paperwork and all that, I will sit at the side of the highway, make myself very, very visible, and watch all the brake lights come slamming on as they go by me. And you know what? It slows people down, even if I'm not at that moment looking.
Not actively, and many people say, well, why aren't the police stopping that? Because they're doing some paperwork, but they're being a visual deterrent. That's the word. It's a visual deterrent. Can I drive with my 1-year-old if I have my beginners? In other words, you have your learner's permit and you're being supervised by a fully licensed G. Can I drive? Yes, you can have passengers. They just can't be in the front seat. The only person who can be in the front seat is that G-class supervising driver.
I don't know why you would.
As a learner, well, you may not have the ability to know. You may not have somebody in your life who can watch the child. They may not be in daycare. You may not have the option. But you make a very good point. As a learner, you are in a highest probability or possibility of getting into a collision because you're learning, and having that child with you as a distraction and as a risk for injury, it's a problem or a potential problem. Who do you support in World Cup? Is that baseball or is that basketball? I'm not watching it. I have no idea who's even. I guess everyone's in it. Is Canada in it? Because I'll support Canada.
I think Canada's.
If Canada's in it, I support Canada. I do not watch soccer. I'm sorry. Is driving an ex-cop car illegal? I drive a Crown Vic. If that was the problem, having a Crown, what's it called, a current Explorer would be a problem because that's a police car and a civilian car at the same time. I mean, you don't want to have police lights, decals that say police and be putting yourself as a police officer. But just having an ex-cop car, it's not a problem.
No, if you hold yourself out to be a police officer driving it around, there is an issue there.
Absolutely.
Not only for the other people, but for yourself as well.
Safety.
You know what? There's an awful lot of people out there that don't like us. And if you're not able to react professionally to that, you put yourself at risk as well.
Will speeding in a commercial motor vehicle in Michigan show up on an abstract? Yeah.
Absolutely will.
Well, not only do in modern days we communicate with everybody, but even in the Stone Age, we had a reciprocal agreement with New York and Michigan because we border, like we touch them, we see them all the time. So as a result, yeah, we have a very special relationship with those states.
You know, impaired convictions in the U.S. also transfer over to your Canadian driver's license.
Would an Autobahn work in North America?
I'd like it.
Many people who want to go fast would like it, but in truth, I'd like to see certain aspects of it. I'd like to see the strict enforcement of speed limits like the Autobahn, which many people don't realize. The Autobahn is not a do-what-you-want highway. In the populated areas, there is an 80 to 130 kilometer an hour speed limit, and it's strictly enforced by photo radar as well as a very busy police service that does that. Now, when you get into the unpopulated rural areas, yeah, you can go as fast as you want. But you know what else happens when you go as fast as you want? You lose control and you get these amazing debris fields of cars exploding because these Lamborghinis that go really, really fast, they're not designed to crash well. They're designed to get up to speed well. But I wouldn't like to see it.
You know what, Sean? Driving in Canada, driving in North America is very, very different from driving in Europe. And I think we're actually less of drivers over here.
We are not as skilled as we'd like to believe.
I don't think we are over here.
I agree with you. Well, I have a perfect example. I had a LinkedIn friend who may be watching now. Hi, LinkedIn friend. He moved from Canada to Ireland, and he didn't have the ability to get the driver's license there. He got a learner's permit, but the stipulations to maintain a license and get a full license are so strict there that he didn't have the ability to do it. Not just, I think there's a amount of time you have to spend behind the wheel, a certain amount of testing. It was just prohibitive and expensive. So the people who drive there really drive.
You know what, Sean? We have roundabouts here. I love roundabouts. They work amazingly as long as everybody knows how to use them. I spent a little time this summer over in Europe, in England, and they have not only single roundabouts, but double roundabouts.
Mm-hmm.
Not only double roundabouts, but they have roundabouts with traffic lights in between two
Really?
roundabouts.
Oh, my.
And you know what? If we can't figure out a simple 4-exit roundabout here, we'll never get those.
Yeah, it's a problem. And I'd love to see more testing. I'd love to even see what they have in the United States, which is when you go to school, you can take driver's ed in school as part of the curriculum. I think it'd be great here.
We used to have that here.
But we don't have it anymore. And
No,
we
I don't know
need
why
that.
it went away, but
We should have mandatory driving instruction.
even if you're not planning on driving,
Everyone needs to.
you'd understand the
Yeah.
dynamics of a car and the risks, and that would make you a better pedestrian as well.
I'd like to see cyclists know the rules of the road, because all too often I'd pull over someone who's riding a bicycle and they'd run a stop sign or a red light. Like, I didn't know I was supposed to stop. But what do you mean? How are you? It's free to read the book. You should know the minimum if you're going to operate on the roads, regardless of what vehicle. And a bicycle is a vehicle. You guys don't have U-turns, right? Omar wants to know. We have U-turns. People do them where it's legal and where it's illegal. And knowing the difference is half the battle.
Maybe we don't have U-turns to the right, but to the left we can.
Yes. Can your fog lights be different color? The only color that you can project forward on in Ontario is yellow or white. Those are the only two colors you can project forward with a projector headlight bulb. And there's other restrictions. You can't project red light to the front at all. It's bad.
Yeah.
And many people want blue, green. They want all sorts of colors in the front.
Why?
I don't know. It's no good. Trey says we have driving stuff through school in Saskatchewan. That's cool. I did not know that.
That's awesome.
Every province having their own stuff. And I imagine I would imagine most people in Saskatchewan drive. Just being that the layout of the land. You got to go a distance to get to the next place. Where I grew up, everyone drove because it was a less densely populated. You couldn't relate. You couldn't wait. It wasn't the TTC where there was a bus coming in 10 minutes, like every hour or something like that.
Yeah. We didn't have buses where I grew up.
No buses.
As soon as I could drive, I was.
Well, that's what I did too. Cash would like to be arrested. Good to know. We have, can I put lights in on a car like some pattern? Vamp wants to know. Like what do you mean? What do you mean?
Maximum 4 lighted headlamps.
Yes, simultaneously lit.
Yep, the maximum of 4. You see these ones, the cars that are all decked out with a whole bunch of lights and aftermarket LED bars and stuff like that. No,
Well, those are absolutely not permitted.
Yep,
They're
that's
not.
correct.
They can't be directed or focused as appropriately to be proper projector bulbs. Not to mention the fact that I wonder if an array of 500 LEDs is 500 lights or is it one? I don't know. Have to get creative here. Who has the right of way at a two-way stop? Well, generally speaking, it's the first to arrive gets to drive. However, this one gets more complicated because it has to be safe to do so. So if you have, because a two-way stop is when you have a road intersecting another road that does not have a stop. So the person who gets there first may be the first person who can safely perform their turn. Like if the person going, into the intersection is making a right turn, they could possibly go at the same time because they're not intersecting.
So you're talking about a 4-way stop.
Well, no, because the four-way stop are 2 roads, but only east and west have to stop. North and south have no stop sign or control.
Oh, okay. So obviously, the one with no control has the right of way.
They definitely have the right of way, but then the question becomes
ones.
secondary.
Yep, the opposing one. But there's an additional responsibility on anybody making a left turn.
Yes.
Any vehicle crossing a traveled lane of traffic has to do so only when it's safe to do so, even if you think it's your turn.
Well, and here's the biggest thing. Regardless of whose turn it is, right of way is given, not taken, because you can demand it all you want. If it's not given, you're going to be in a collision. It's going to end badly for you. So, not only in this time of as we're approaching the Christmas and holiday season, where giving is it's the season of giving. Giving the right of way is a great thing. Adds 30 to 60 seconds to your routine, and you reduce the chance of collision by being courteous.
Nicely said.
I like it. I'm really looking forward to the Christmas and holiday season because it's fun stuff. There's gifts. There's all the fun treats and stuff, and everyone treats each other better than they do normally, which is unfortunate because it should be all year round where we're nice to each other.
And usually lots of food.
What the treats? I just covered that by treats because I'm trying to make it sound small. What do we got here? We got 5 minutes is what we got here.
Oh, wow.
Would you ever get involved with NL Police if needed? What is NL Police?
Newfoundland?
I don't know what you mean, get involved with them. Like, you mean like have them on a show and talk to them? Sure. If you mean like go there, what are we doing? Apparently there's lots of stuff to do. I'd love to go to Newfoundland one day.
There's ongoing joint investigations all the time with other police services. So we would collaborate with any police service out there.
Yeah. But I wonder what take or what spin you've got. Like maybe you mean a TikTok live? We could do that too. Chris wants to know, and it's a very common question, not to reduce the quality of the question, but Chris wants to know, why can't we run no plates in the front? Well, it's because the law says you got to have two. We issue you two. They want their money's worth. They want to. Truth is that when our premier came into office, he was talking about getting rid of the front plate, and he went to those trusted advisors, those chiefs of police, and said, "What do you think, gents and ladies and people?" And they said, "It's easier to." I'm paraphrasing, of course, but essentially for public safety, it's easier or more likely to identify a vehicle with two plates. You have double the chances than identifying it with one. Also, front plates are amazing. When you rear end someone, you usually leave that piece of evidence at the scene, and when they run away, we know who it was. Evidence.
We call that a clue.
Yes, we like those. And I like clues. Clues are good. We've got to. Would you ever move to Jane and Finch? I don't know what you're alluding to, but I don't live there. I like to be living north of the city. Do you have a hidden talent? I don't know. Do I have a hidden talent? It could be hidden to me too. Why don't police travel?
Hot sauce, Sean.
What's
Hot
that?
sauce.
I do like hot sauce. Mind you, I had a really bad experience with hot sauce recently, so I'm taking a hot sauce break. What is this question? The question is, why don't police travel at a safe distance behind? And I don't know what you mean, because I travel at a safe distance behind. Were they not traveling at a safe distance behind when you observed whatever they were doing? I don't know what they were doing. I can't do my G2 exit until next year. What can I do? If you can't do your G2 exit before next year and you are expired, well, then you're in trouble. So I would certainly make efforts to do it before it expires or before the extension, or at very least extend your G2, which, as the sergeant was saying, might be the same test as getting your full G at this time. So contact your drivetest.ca folks and, do what you can to get it done, because you're waiting not good.
I do believe they have cancellation lists.
Oh, but I wonder if it's because they can't get a test, or if they are like out of the country or something like that.
Yeah.
Depending on your situation, you really got to look at it. Cass wanted to know, is it Degrassi? And if you were making a reference to a previously posted video, then yes, the school I was standing in is now a Centennial College location, and Degrassi was the show that was being filmed there, or that this was doubling as the set of. I have a connection to that show. I know I have a very close friend of the family who is on that show, who played a role on the episodes that I didn't watch Second Generation, but she was on it.
Wow.
And now she's
You're
in all sorts
famous.
I'm not famous. She's famous. When do vehicle pursuits usually happen? Well, oddly enough, there's a very specific criteria for when they happen. You see, when we put on our lights and sirens and we tell you pull over and you don't, that is instantaneously a pursuit. That is the definition of a pursuit. We action the stop and you refuse. That's pursuit.
How long it goes for?
That's
all
a different
depends.
story. Yes, depends. I think we've gone the entire episode without saying depends.
Well, I just did it.
You broke the seal.
I just did it.
How about these new stand-on electric scooters? Stand-on electric scooters are called e-kick scooters under the definition, or at least actually to meet that definition, they must be not capable of exceeding 24 kilometers an hour on a flat surface. They cannot have more than a 500-watt motor, and there's a couple of other things, but they are covered under a pilot. And that pilot requires each municipality to opt in. Toronto hasn't, so they're prohibited for use here. And if people do things like put seats on them, make them faster or more powerful, they are not electric scooters anymore. They are motorcycles under the Highway Traffic Act. They are motor vehicles. They're always motor vehicles, but they're given an exemption if they conform to the pilot requirements. And then if you choose to drive them in places either that in a modified state or places that they're prohibited, you get a ticket, and you can be charged for no license, no insurance, no plates, all sorts of things.
Yeah, they've been treated as a total motor vehicle. They are right now, with a few exemptions for licensing, insuring, and plates. That's it. But they're a motor vehicle.
Absolutely. And we're seeing people with all sorts of other unique vehicles, like powered skateboards that do 40 miles an hour, or one wheels that do 40 miles an hour. One wheel, what do they call them? Electric unicycles. And they are not okay. They're cool. I will give you that. They're cool. And then when you see them getting hit by cars, they're suddenly less cool. I've seen videos of people's limbs being... No, it's very gruesome. So they don't have brakes, they don't have steering, they don't have anything that would make them a safe vehicle. So they're being charged with drive or operate unsafe motor vehicle, and it's a big deal. So if you're thinking about buying one, maybe have second thoughts. It's not worth the investment. They're not cheap either. I think they're like $2,500.
I had a conversation yesterday. I was working at the Santa Claus Parade in Toronto, and I had a conversation with somebody who was actually pushing a bicycle with a gas motor.
Oh.
That was on it.
You don't say.
Yep. And do you know why he was pushing it?
Because someone told him that he was getting tickets?
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly. And he was pushing it home.
Yeah.
And you know what? Good for him for actually pushing it home.
So that's another thing. Converted bicycles that have a gasoline engine on them, they're not even covered under any kind of exemption, like if they conform to the e-bike rules. They're absolutely motorcycles.
Yep, 100%.
And unplated, unregistered, unsafe.
You need a full motorcycle license. You need all the lighting. You need horns. You need proper tires. You need safety compliance stickers. You need insurance. You need everything.
Yeah, and it gets expensive, considering that no insurance alone starts at $5,000 and goes to $25,000 on a first conviction, and up to 6 months in jail. So people don't realize, and it's not an excuse. Not realizing or believing what the website told you, which is a lie. You can buy this, and if it's under 50 cc, it's perfectly legal. Maybe in some states, and I will say in other provinces, my understanding is they are legal. Ontario has their own laws, and every province has their own laws. So know the laws of the place you're going to be using them. Otherwise, you are going to be one unfortunately unhappy person.
He was not happy.
Knowing that you've got all that power of 49 cc's at your disposal and you had to walk. Oh, yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad knowing now. Listen, it has been a blast. I'm going to press a button. We're going to listen to a song only because it's been a while since we've heard it. It is a song that was written, performed, and recorded here by a police officer in the CIB. It's the Toronto Police traffic song. Yeah.
Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow. Watch for pedestrians, look out for bikes, and don't drive like a jerk that no one likes. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Put down your cell phone, nobody needs you to text and drive on the DVP. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Stop at stop signs, look both ways, then go. Seatbelt, save your life indeed. And watch your driving, don't speed. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Don't drink and drive or smoke some weed, because you might go to jail and not get free. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
We'll see you tomorrow.
4,